The Good evening, wherever you happen to be in British Columbia. It is election night, and welcome to Castanet's live coverage of the provincial election. The polls will be closing across the province in about 45 minutes. Results should start coming in about an hour to 90 minutes or thereabouts, and hopefully by 9:30 we should know who, if anybody, is going to be ruling the province for the next 4 years. They say that politics is like a blood sport. Well, if this campaign was a boxing match, then we are, going to the judges' scorecards. We have had 15 tough rounds, some good body blows by both sides, one knockout, self-imposed by Kevin Falcon when he knocked out the BC United Party from this race, creating a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and it's brought us to where we are this evening. I'm Wayne Moore. Good evening and welcome, as mentioned, to our coverage. We will be focusing mainly on the 12 Southern Interior ridings, and sitting at our election desk with me on my far left, Al Waters, former Capital News, Black Press, City Hall and political reporter, and now reporter and editor here at Castanet. And to my immediate left, the rose between our thorns, is Mohini Singh, current Kelowna City Councillor, former reporter and anchor at the Okanagan's very own CHBC before the switch to Global. Good evening, both of you. We should have an interesting night, I'm sure. Mohini, let's start with you, ladies first. What are you expecting tonight, both in the region and provincially?
You're asking me to call the election now?
Well, I asked you a week ago and you refused, so.
Well, you know, this has been a strange election, no doubt, and it's going to be very hard till the bitter end to call it exactly. I do believe at the end of the day, it's going to be very, very tight. In our region, in the Nelson region, of course, the NDP is strong. The NDP could be strong again in the Boundary-Similkameen region. The riding to watch, the two ridings to watch are Kelowna Centre and Vernon. Vernon Lumbee are the two ridings to watch, because as you know, Vernon Lumbee, the incumbent, is Harinder Sandhu, and the Dennis Giesbrecht, who's been parachuted from Kamloops into this riding, is apparently making a lot of friends, and doing quite well. So I don't know, let's see. I know people in Vernon don't like people from outside coming in their community, but who knows? Let's see what the voters will say at the polls.
Yeah, we should know in a couple of hours.
And there's Kelowna Centre too, sorry.
Yes, of course.
There's Michael Humer. Dr. Michael Humer is very strong, well respected, well liked in the community, and then we have the Conservative momentum. So between the two of them, they could be pulling votes and giving a path clear for Loyal Woolridge. But then again, who knows?
And that's what we're going to find out. Al, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. We have an election here that I don't think a lot of people saw coming, given the monumental changes that have happened, not the least of which was BC United suspending their campaign, but also the fact that there are so many independents running too. Yeah. And whether or not the independents win seats or not, they very likely will have an impact on their individual races, which could shake things up for some of the other candidates. And I think that's something to really kind of watch for, is what sort of an impact are they going to have, regardless of winning or not, but of impacting the Conservatives or the NDP in the different ridings.
And that definitely is one of the storylines here. I mean, we're seeing the polls, 44-40, 45-40 in favor of the NDP. Some polls have it, basically the other way around. But what we're not seeing is the quote-unquote independent numbers, whether they're muddled in there. We don't know. But as you say, there are some ridings where an NDP candidate could squeak through because of a vote split. But again, we'll find that out later this evening.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes this particular election as close and as difficult to call going in as it does, is what will that impact be?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also very interesting, Wayne, to see the number of incumbents, the number of independents who've stepped forward. Strong independents have stepped forward. If you look at Kelowna Mission, the independent unaffiliated candidate there, she's very strong as well. And
in West Kelowna, Peachland as well. You know, our current city
Stephen
councillor.
Johnson, yeah, well liked, well respected, very strong.
Top of the polls.
Exactly,
municipally.
yeah.
But again, no party affiliation. Do people vote party? Yeah. Do people vote leader? Some. Do people vote for their representative? Yeah. Some, but is it enough? And again, we'll find that out. We prepared a number of profiles of our different regions, and we'll begin in the Boundary-Similkameen with Sarah Crookall.
I'm Sarah Crookall, and here in the Boundary-Similkameen, we have a pretty strong incumbent looking to keep his seat as MLA against three opponents, a Conservative, a Green, and an Independent. NDP candidate Rolly Russell is running for his second term. Heading into this election, he told Castanet his focus is on community-led solutions. His website emphasizes affordability and agriculture.
I think that's part of the heart of the challenge that we're facing, is that sense of disconnection that people are suffering from. And so whether we're talking about climate action, whether we're talking about mental health and addictions, whether we're talking about community-led watershed management, all of those pieces to me are well served by building stronger sense of community.
Russell's Conservative Party challenger is Donegal Wilson, whose main issues are economic development and improving healthcare.
Once we identify those gaps and to find out how we recruit those doctors and nurses, we want to bring back the nurses and doctors that were pushed out for their personal health choices. But we know that we need to do more than that. We need to make BC attractive for those healthcare professionals, and especially rural BC.
Green Party's Kevin Eastwood and Independent Sean Taylor are also running and spoke to Castanet about their platforms.
One thing I'm excited for with the Green Party is the proposed dogwood model. What that is bringing doctors, nurse practitioners, and other health practitioners like physiotherapists together as a team to ensure everyone has access to a physician or nurse practitioner, but that administrative tasks can be looked after centrally by admin professionals rather than being a burden on doctors.
In one word, I guess if I had a platform as an independent, you don't really have a platform, but in one word, it would be devolution. The erosion of personal sovereignty that we've seen over the last few years, I think, is alarming, and I think we should start immediately rolling the things back that have been put forth in the last few years. Bill 36, the new Health Professions Act, is insane, and we need to repeal that right away. The Emergency Measures Act.
Turning now to the neighboring district of Kootenay-Monashee, there are three candidates vying for an open spot there. The NDP has Steve Morissette looking to replace outgoing MLA Katrine Conroy. The Conservative Party has Glenn Bile, and the Green Party has Donovan Cavers. Up to now, polls have shown a neck-and-neck race between the NDP and the Conservatives. Voting stations close tonight at 8 p.m. and vote counting begins next weekend. Stay tuned to Castanet for more information, and for Castanet News, I'm Sarah Crookall.
And that is Sarah Crookall down in the South Okanagan, talking about three ridings, Boundary-Similkameen, 2 in the Kootenays, all current NDP ridings. We have two of the incumbents still running, but Katrine Conroy is not. Obviously, the Conservatives looking to flip that seat, and of course, if they are going to form government, there are seats that they need to flip. I don't know her chances over in that region, but obviously, if the Conservatives are going to do something in this election, and if they're going to form government, those are the kind of seats they have to become very competitive in, very quickly.
That seat that Katrine Conroy held it's basically considered a pretty safe NDP seat. So I would expect that the NDP candidate there is going to do fairly well if history is to be repeated. And I think that in the interior, where I think the Conservatives probably have a lot of strength, I think that's one area where the NDP is pretty confident in those ridings down there for the support that they have there.
And those are the three, when Parliament dissolved, when the writ was dropped, in our 12 ridings, stretching from Kamloops south, 7 were held by, at the time, BC United, 4 by the NDP, 3 in that area, and of course we have the new riding in Kelowna Centre. Do you look at, do you look at a riding such as the Kootenays and Mohini and look for maybe not a win, but maybe more competitive than before?
I was looking at 338 polls before
Yeah.
coming here, and I looked at the Kootenays, and it was looking tight, tighter than in the past, but it did suggest there would be in both Kootenay Centre and Kootenay Monashee an NDP
representative.
win. Yeah.
And it's, the boundaries have changed, and that's something, and it's hard for us to know sitting here without knowledge of exactly where some of the votes came from necessarily in 2020 to say, yes, this riding has changed boundaries, so you know where I'm going at.
And I think that's part of the issue. I think 72 ridings had boundaries changed of the ridings. 41 have had name changes, but the 72 boundary changes, I think, does muddy it somewhat in that you can't directly look back and say, because the previous riding did this, this is going to happen now, especially in some of the ridings where you might have an NDP riding surrounded by what had been BC United ridings, because now some of those areas overlap.
Yeah.
I've had so many calls from people asking me where do I go vote,
Right.
and several from Glenmore asking where do we go.
Well,
So-
honestly, if and I know we're going out, across the whole province, but if you know Kelowna well, Highway 97 and Highway 33, that intersection, all 3 ridings within the city merge in that intersection. So, I live on that side of the street. Oh, that's my riding. Oh, that side I'm another riding. It's an interesting area.
But you know what gave me a lot of, what surprised me was how active the electorate has been towards this week. Ever since the advanced polling was called, the response has been tremendous. When I went, I think it was Wednesday night, and I thought if I went at 7:30 in the evening, it'll be quiet. I couldn't even get into the parking lot
Parkinson
of
Rec
the
Centre?
No, it's
Okay.
the Anglican Church on Lakeshore. I couldn't even turn in.
Our Nick Johansson went to the Parkinson Rec Centre on, I believe, Wednesday, and he found the same thing. The lineup was out the door and down the road. So.
Well, I think it's over 1 million people
Yeah.
have voted in the
Yeah,
advance
and
poll,
vote,
which is
yeah.
basically about a third
Just
of
about
the eligible
29
electorate.
some
Yeah.
odd percent, I think. One of the interesting campaigns has been going on in Penticton-Summerland. Some sniping back and forth. We've had a threatened lawsuit. We'll hear more from Chelsea Powery and Casey Richardson as they tee up Penticton-Summerland.
I'm Chelsea Powery here with Casey Richardson, and here in the Penticton-Summerland riding, we have a wide open race with no incumbent.
That's right, Chelsea. Longtime MLA Dan Ashton is retiring, instead setting his sights on the federal seat in the next election.
And so here in this riding, for the provincial election, we have 2 major parties, the NDP and the Conservatives, that are both being represented here. Respectively, that's Tina Lee and Amelia Boultby. Casey, you have sat down with both of them.
That's right. Tina Lee, the NDP candidate, has her eye on the MLA seat in an effort to tackle affordability issues, believing the party in power is now the right choice.
But what I know is that I'm running with a party that cares about people, that has a record of making significant investments in the programs that we need, in hiring doctors, in training mental health and addictions professionals, in investing in housing, and taking action on climate change.
The Conservative candidate, Amelia Boultby, has stepped away from Penticton City Council halfway through her term, telling Castanet she felt she could make more of a difference as an MLA.
Being on city council is fantastic and I've loved it, But especially when it came to housing and crime, we did everything we could at the municipal level. We really couldn't do any more. And that's why I think it's time to send someone to Victoria so that we can change the policies that are actually still affecting us on crime and housing.
And the center-right voter has another option in this riding. Tracy St. Clair was running with the BC United Party until it folded its campaign. She decided instead to run unaffiliated, but aligns herself with conservative values.
I describe my leanings as centrist right. I believe in fiscal accountability, but social responsibility. So many voters who said, if you don't run, I don't think I'm going to vote. I don't know where to put my vote. I don't want the NDP to be in. I can't support this specific BC Conservative candidate. I got into this to make change. I got into this because I can see where we can make a difference in healthcare and in other parts of provincial jurisdiction.
The Green Party also has its hat in the ring. Bradley Barch believes his party's role could be powerful in a minority government.
Often we think that the only kind of government that gets anything done is majority governments, because they don't have to collaborate as much. But minority governments actually allow more people in society to have input, because the government has to listen to get anything done.
The riding also has two independent candidates, Roger Harrington and Anna Padden.
So I'm a dad and a granddad. I practiced dentistry in Penticton for 43 years, had a great practice. With the advent of Bill 36, which is the Health Professions and Occupations Act, it looked pretty hairy, and I actually sold my practice. And then I was working with a group who formed a riding association, and we'd been protesting the mandates. I just felt I couldn't turn the province over to these kids in the current state of affairs.
Well, I think a very important issue is housing and homelessness. We have to really address taking care of not only seniors and families, but the homeless community. I really don't agree with locking them up, and you get them integrated into a housing community where they also take part voluntarily on their own to return to the community.
One thing all candidates can agree on is opposition to the gravel pit mine in Summerland, recently approved by the current government.
Yes, and that about sums up our riding here, which has certainly been a hot ticket provincially. It looks like this is a real key area for the Conservative Party. Conservative leader John Rustad actually made a visit at a meet and greet here in Penticton just 2 weeks before the election, and a stunning 34% of voters who are eligible have actually chosen to vote early here in this riding.
Polls close at 8 p.m. Castanet will be continuing our coverage, so stay tuned in. For Castanet News, I'm Casey Richardson.
And I'm Chelsea Powery.
Thank you very much, Chelsea Powery. Casey Richardson doing a tag team on with the candidates down in Penticton-Summerland. We'll now turn our attention to the far north reaches of our coverage area. Josh Dawson and the two ridings up in Kamloops, Kamloops Centre and Kamloops North Thompson.
Two redrawn ridings are at play in the Kamloops area, with all three major political parties running candidates in Kamloops Centre and Kamloops North Thompson. Two-time Kamloops North Thompson incumbent Peter Millibar, who joined the BC Conservatives after his BC United Party collapsed its campaign, is running in the new Kamloops Centre. Also in Kamloops Centre is political newcomer Kamal Grewal of the BC NDP, who formerly worked in international student services at Thompson Rivers University and served on the Canadian Mental Health Association Board of Directors. Local economist Randy Sunderman of the BC Greens, who has sat on a myriad of boards and committees, will also be running off in Kamloops Centre. Millibar said his priority will be to focus on healthcare if re-elected, with the hope of bringing down emergency room wait times and increasing a number of services needed in the city. If elected, Grewal's priorities will be to focus on healthcare and the cost of living, particularly childcare and housing. Sunderman said his focus is on healthcare and its connection with homelessness and addiction, as well as better capitalizing on natural resources. In Kamloops North Thompson, Maddie Genn, a youth worker, active union member, and another political newcomer, is looking to be elected. BC Green candidate Tristan Cavers is a farmer who's held several board positions, such as the chair of the Kamloops Farmers Market and on the Chase Chamber of Commerce, is also looking to be elected. Rounding out Kamloops North Thompson is two-time Barrier Mayor, Thompson-Nicola Regional District Director, and longtime logging contractor Ward Stamer of the BC Conservatives. Genn's priorities are to focus on healthcare, the opioid crisis, and housing costs. She said highway safety would absolutely be a priority for rural areas of the riding as well. Cavers said he'd like to focus on water use in agriculture, innovation in the forestry sector, and the lack of mills in the North Thompson. Stamer's priorities include making improvements to healthcare, housing costs, and affordability, including ending the provincial carbon tax. Polls closed Saturday at 8 p.m. and advance voting has already seen more than 23,000 people cast a ballot between the two ridings over 6 days. For Castanet Kamloops, I'm Josh Dawson.
Josh Dawson in Kamloops. Thank you very much, Josh, for that look at the two Kamloops ridings. And, well, interesting, Peter Millibar, who was a longtime BC Liberal MLA in Kamloops North Thompson, decided, one of the few that was offered and said, yes, I will run for the BC Conservative Party, but switch ridings. Mohini, do you think that's a wise decision?
Yes, for him. He's a three-term mayor, well-liked in the region. He is, and believed to be the longest-serving mayor in Kamloops. Right. And it's because of the fact that he was given Kamloops that Dennis Giesbrecht was moved to Vernon. Right. And Ward Stamer gets the other Kamloops riding.
The mayor barrier.
Mayor barrier. Right. So I think what they thought was, these two Kamloops ridings we can take. If we move Dennis to Vernon, there's a potential of us taking that as well. And that was their strategy. That's the way I look at it. Vernon is a very conservative region, conservative leaning, so they figured that they could take that as well. So strategically, this was a good move on their part.
And now, of course, Todd Stone, a very popular MLA in Kamloops Centre, where Peter Millibar has moved over to. So, I mean, obviously a fairly safe conservative or right-leaning seat.
Right-leaning, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it was a, as Mohini put it, a strategic move here to do what they did. I think also Millibar, he's popular in that area. There's no doubt about it. They looked at it and they thought, yes, he is one of the, and there weren't many, but he was one of the BC United people candidates that the BC Conservatives took on to run for them, and I think that they obviously figure that he's the one with the best chance. Hence the move of Giesbrecht.
You've both mentioned Dennis Giesbrecht, which perfect tee up for our next riding look at Vernon and also the Salmon Arm Shuswap with Chelsea Mutter up in Vernon. Here's Chelsea.
Here in the North Okanagan Shuswap, we have two ridings. In Vernon-Lumby, NDP candidate and incumbent Harwinder Sandhu is hoping for re-election. She's been the MLA for the area since 2020. She's facing off against BC Conservative candidate Dennis Giesbrecht. He was originally running for the Kamloops Centre seat before being parachuted in here. Kevin Acton is running as an independent candidate. He was formerly with the BC United before the party suspended its campaign. He is the current mayor of Lumby, and some voters have expressed concern that he will split the vote. The final candidate is Robert Johnson. He's running for the BC Libertarian Party, and he is a dentist in Salmon Arm. Some candidates in the riding have faced criticism from voters over skipping forums and not responding to questionnaires about the election. Only 2 out of the 4 candidates made themselves available for on-camera interviews with Castanet.
So it's housing, healthcare, and affordability. And I say when we talk about affordability, it's all intertwined. And there are various climate, when I talk to young and even now more older people worried about climate change as well. So there are various issues, but these are some of the top issues, definitely.
Probably the same as the rest of the province for the most part, like the overarching, right? Like we don't have walk-in clinics, we're short personal doctors. You know, we have unhoused, and there's people on the streets, visibly on the streets. So we have drug and alcohol issues, and crime is an issue here. And then of course affordability.
The Salmon Arm Shuswap riding is wide open, with longtime incumbent Greg Kylo retiring from politics. 5 candidates are vying for the open MLA position. First off, Salmon Arm City Councillor Sylvia Lindgren is the NDP candidate in the riding.
We need to provide public services so that people can have health care and roads and transit and the things that we need every day, and not have to pay exorbitant fees or like privatized health care is doing.
Longtime Shuswap resident and businessman David Williams is the BC Conservatives candidate.
I believe you have to have a strong voice that's both transparent and accountable. And I would want to be that person that represents you, to be your advocate for a governing party within British Columbia.
2 independent candidates have put their name forward: former Enderby Mayor Greg McCune and holistic health coach Sherry Roy.
Our issue at the time is we knew that by 2025 we would have 75% of our population would be over the age of 75. And that's very difficult to run a city when there's a lot of fixed income residents. And so we, as a council and as the team at City Hall, decided that we had to really, really lower the age of Enderby, and we were successful.
The final candidate in the riding is Jed Weeb for the BC Greens. He is a lifelong Salmon Arm resident.
We'll tackle climate change by redirecting the NDP's massive fossil fuel subsidies into a just transition for green jobs. We'll make improvements that are proven to work to our healthcare, education, and transportation systems, and we'll reduce the cost of housing through making a monumental investment in non-market homes.
Here in the Vernon Shuswap, just over 30% of registered voters cast their ballot early in the advanced polls. Stay tuned to castanet.net for election updates. For Castanet, I'm Chelsea Mutter in Vernon.
Thank you very much, Chelsea Mutter, up in Vernon. Vernon riding, very interesting. Coldstream no longer part of this riding. Columbia has now been inserted instead. Vernon has always been a fairly conservative area.
Very
Mel
conservative.
Arnold, a longtime MP, Eric Foster, the longtime MLA, until the last election in 2020 when Harwinder beat him by, Al, you're the prince of numbers.
424 votes.
Yeah, and it took us a week to find that out. With the addition of Lumbee, Kevin Acton, a very popular mayor of that community, running as the former BC United, now independent candidate, this is one to watch as to, can the NDP hold on? Can Kevin Acton somehow fashion a major upset? Or can the Conservatives get the seat back for the right side of the column? Or do we have vote splitting all over them? I mean, this is an interesting riding.
This is an interesting riding, and I can tell you the NDP's pulled out all stops to make sure they hold on to that seat. And that's what I've been told. That
it took them so long to finally get it.
I think it was like 30 years. I think a right of centre, different name party, but a right of centre party had represented, and then Sandhu won, as I say, by 424 votes the last time. I think this is one of those ridings where I don't know if Acton is going to win, but I think he could definitely have an influence as an independent candidate, being popular Lumbee mayor. His vote take in this race could have an influence, probably to the benefit of Sandhu, as to whether or not she can hang on to that seat.
But bear in mind the population isn't that high in Lumbee, so the drawing pool is really Vernon.
Indeed,
of course.
But I don't know if it seems that Acton is fairly popular, not just in Lumbee, but in that area, and that's why I'm thinking that he may be taking votes which may have gone to a right of centre candidate if it was just right of centre versus left of centre.
And we've seen situations like this. I mean, not too distant past, federally, when Ron Cannon, a very popular progressive conservative or conservative MP, during the anybody but Stephen Harper election campaign that brought Trudeau to power, and Stephen Fuhr, very strong candidate, won that. Now he only held it for one term. Now Tracy Gray has and it's back to being conservative. So obviously the Conservatives are hoping that the Free Enterprise can take that seat back.
And in that particular instance, and I know it was a different election, but he greatly benefited from that kind of liberal wave. By the same token, if there is a conservative wave happening here, I think some of those close ridings may very well go conservative, if there is that kind of wave happening across the province. Because of course, a lot of what's going to eventually happen in this election is probably going to be determined down in the Lower Mainland and a lot of the seats down there.
Of course. And I mean, we talk about polls right off the top, 44-40, 45-40, either way. But this is not one election. This is 93 individual regional elections with a race to 47. So, I mean, the numbers are great, but, you can pull a lot of numbers out of Vancouver ridings, but it's still only one seat. And, you can pull a lot of numbers, but again, we'll find out as the clock is ticking 15 minutes now before the polls close. Our final look is the Central Okanagan. What was 3 ridings is now 4, as we have now the Kelowna Centre riding, which takes part of Kelowna Lake Country, the Glenmore portion, the Glenmore Valley portion, and also the former Kelowna West riding. Ben Stewart represented West Kelowna, also downtown Kelowna. Well, that's now part of the new Kelowna Centre riding that the NDP are hoping to steal for the first time ever in the seat of free enterprise in the province. So here's our Cindy White with a look at the Central Okanagan.
4 ridings are up for grabs in the Kelowna area this provincial election, all with new boundaries and no incumbents running. In the 2020 election, there were 3 local ridings and the BC Liberals took all the seats. However, after that party changed its name to BC United and started to slip in popularity, all 3 incumbents, Renee Merrifield, Norm Letnick, and Ben Stewart, announced they would not be running again. When leader Kevin Falcon announced that BC United would not be running in the election, that left the candidates who had already been chosen locally out in the cold. Many of them have decided to run as independents.
For me, it was never a question, so I was going to remain in the race regardless, because my commitment had never changed to my community.
In the new Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream riding, which takes in part of Letnick's old riding along with adding Coldstream, there are 4 candidates. Tara Armstrong is running for the Conservatives, while Andrew Rhodes is the contender for the BC Greens. Neither showed up for a Kelowna Chamber of Commerce all-candidates forum and declined one-on-one interviews with Castanet. The other 2 candidates are the NDP's Anna Warwick-Sears, known for her years of leadership with the Okanagan Basin Water Board, and true independent Kevin Kraft, who represented Central Okanagan East on the Regional District Board.
And I really think there's a unique opportunity with the independents, especially the independents in the Okanagan, to represent not necessarily both sides, but really be the glue that provides some traction moving forward.
Over in Kelowna Mission, former BC United nominee Ashley Ramsey is running as an unaffiliated independent. The founder of Yeti Farm Creative has the endorsement of Letnick. The Conservatives have tapped Gavin Dew, former BC Liberal leadership contender, while the NDP candidate is workplace safety advocate Harpreet Badahal, and Billy Young carries the Green banner. Dew was the only local Conservative to take part in the Chamber of Commerce debate and sit down for an interview with Castanet. What was Kelowna West is now West Kelowna Peachland. Voters in that riding only have 3 candidates to choose from. The NDP's Crystal Smith, the Conservatives' Macklin McCall, and unaffiliated Stephen Johnston, who is a current West Kelowna City Councillor. In the new Kelowna Centre riding, Kelowna City Councillor Loyal Wooldridge is hoping name recognition and his track record will help him make an NDP breakthrough in Kelowna. The Conservatives have selected longtime real estate agent Christina Lowen to go up against Wooldridge, while Bryce Tippie is the Green contender. Retired surgeon Dr. Michael Humer, the former BC United nominee, is the unaffiliated candidate. Regardless of what side of the spectrum they're on, almost all candidates agree the top local issues are affordability, housing, and the impacts of the toxic drug and mental health crisis. Conservative leader John Rustad pledged to get rid of tent cities during a stop in Kelowna earlier in the campaign. That's likely easier said than done.
Obviously, we're faced with big challenges. You know, we have the largest encampment outside of downtown Vancouver. And that's something that we need to deal with and we've been grappling with on council. These are not simple, easy, quick, or cheap solutions to deal with. They've been building over decades.
There was a record turnout of more than 1 million British Columbians in advance voting. Whether that translates into higher numbers overall is unclear. Just under 54% of eligible voters cast ballots in 2020, down from 61% in 2017. For the latest on election results, go to castanet.net. For Castanet News in Kelowna, I'm Cindy White.
Cindy White with a look at the 4 Central Okanagan ridings. What was 3 is now 4 this time around. Thank you very much, Cindy. Cindy touched on a number of things, but I want to start off with the lack of visibility, at least for us, of 3 of the Conservative candidates, although Macklin McCall did go to an all candidates meeting in the Northwest side, but Christina Lowen in New Kelowna Centre and Tara Armstrong in Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream. Neither one of those showed up for any of our interviews with any other media except for written questions, and also didn't show up at any of the all candidates meetings. Mohini, as a veteran politician, is that the right strategy in your view?
You know, I'm speaking for myself
Yes.
here, and personally, I think it's so wrong. Because when you're elected to office, you're accountable to the taxpayer. You have the moral, ethical responsibility to meet the taxpayers, hear from them, know what their concerns are, because you are their voice. You are speaking for them. You need to know the community, you need to know the issues. People need to know you. And so when they don't show up, then they're actually thumbing their noses at the voter. And really, right now, all they're doing is riding the wave of this Conservative popularity. It really angers me because I, as an elected person, take my job very seriously. I go see anybody who calls me, respond to issues. This is very wrong. That's my humble opinion.
We talked about this ad nauseum in the newsroom over the last few weeks, but it was brought up, and I can't remember the candidate that brought it up. It's probably on a couple of different occasions that if you're not going to show up now, and you get elected, are you going to be held accountable? Are you going to be accountable to the electorate once you get elected?
And that's the question that's being asked by members of the public. I think what's going to be interesting in these particular ridings is going to be how much of an impact that actually had. Are people voting strictly party? And if they are, to them, does it matter that candidates didn't show up for an all-candidates meeting? I mean, I was at the West Kelowna Peachland all-candidates meeting that was set up by the Greater West Side Board of Trade, and the only candidate that showed up was Stephen Johnson. He basically had himself a town hall meeting where he talked to 200 people. It was a wasted opportunity. Now, maybe the feeling is the Conservative candidate doesn't need to do that because they fear or they feel that it's a foregone conclusion. I don't know, but you kind of wonder about the strategy of doing that and having at least some of the voters question, are you going to show up if you are elected, if you didn't show up to get elected?
There's also some of
Is
the
it just
baggage that
about, but is this just about winning a seat and getting a paycheck and not being accountable to the voter, to the public, to the taxpayer, dealing with the issues of the community? Isn't that more important? Isn't service to the public more important? It is imperative that people running for office show up and meet the public. This is a very, very wrong thing. I think from a moral perspective and an ethical perspective, it's very wrong. From a political perspective, they're playing their cards the way they feel they're going to.
And apparently it wasn't just here.
No, it's been going on all over
It's
the
happening
province.
across the province,
Yeah.
where Conservative candidates have basically used the same strategy.
And if you look at their websites, it's all John Rustad. There's nothing. I was looking at I was going through their websites just to prepare to learn about them, since we haven't met them. And there's nothing there. There are no pictures of them interacting with the public. Nothing. It's all John Rustad.
See, and part of the issue too, one would assume, is we're talking about a party that has could form government that's come out of nowhere over the last 13, 14 months, that has installed candidates for a party that 4 years ago got 1.5% of the vote,
1.9% of the vote,
There
and
you go.
and they ran 19 candidates.
Yeah, and many of them are inexperienced. Actually, all but a handful have never been in government or even run a political campaign before. So, there's that issue as well. So, but again, we'll find out tonight whether that matters to the voter. I mean, at the end of the day, those savvy voters that want to get as much information as they can, maybe. Those that just go to the ballot box as they always have and mark for a party, maybe not.
And that'll also be an issue if the Conservatives do win and they do form the next government. You basically have a team of very inexperienced MLAs that you're having to set in motion to be ministers, to run government. That's not an easy task for a leader to have.
No,
not much experience in your ranks.
We're 4 minutes away from
and also no skin in the game and no skin in your community. Again.
4 minutes away from the polls closing. Our Madison Reeve was out on the street earlier today. She talked to some voters as they came out of their respective polling areas, and quite bluntly asked them who they voted for, and you'd be surprised how many people actually gave their opinion. So here's Madison on the street with some of our voters.
It's your final day to cast your vote for the BC provincial election. I hit one of the voting stations here in Kelowna asking residents who they're voting for and why.
I'm absolutely voting Conservative. We're lucky enough to have a pretty strong Conservative representation in the interior, but it's been sorely lacking provincially, so hopefully we can make a big change this year.
I voted NDP just because of their current things regarding renewable resource energy and renewable and sustainable jobs.
I voted Green. I kind of just took a quiz online, I'm not gonna lie. Because I did this very last minute. I was really not prepared, but I got the voting experience.
Well, I voted for somebody different than I normally vote for, so we'll see who gets it.
I voted more for the party, someone who's going to be our voice to Victoria.
I voted Conservative.
Why is that?
Because I just want to get Justin Trudeau out of there, to be honest.
Both the NDP and BC Conservatives are running a full slate of candidates, while the Greens are running 69 and a record 40 independents are in the race, including 6 incumbents. Madison Reeve, Castanet News, Kelowna.
Our Madison Reeve with some of the residents of Kelowna as they come out of the voting booth. And Madison did one of these earlier in the week, a street earlier in the week, and the same issue came up, or the same comment came up. I'm voting to get rid of Trudeau. We've heard from some of the candidates that, they'll knock on a door and ask, who you're voting for with the Conservatives. Why? Well, because I love their leader, Pierre Poilievre. Neither one of those. And sometimes, things get confusing. Why did the BC Liberals change their name? Because they don't want to be, painted with the same brush as the federal Liberals. We're a different party. I think sometimes the waters get a little muddy. Pierre Poilievre, who is the leader of the federal Conservatives, refused to get involved in this election. We're not the same party. And confusion reigns.
But the wave started because of the Pierre Poilievre wave.
Yes, of course.
And that's the momentum that pushed the BC Conservatives to where they are today. A year ago, would we be even considering this?
No.
Them as an effective opposition or potentially being in government? This wouldn't even be a conversation.
No, a year ago, if any party was going to say we're suspending our campaign because we don't want the NDP here, it would have been the Conservatives. It would have been John Rustad. It would not have been Kevin Falcon and the BC United. But you're right. The Pierre Poilievre wave of the last 18 months has swept through British Columbia like a...
Well, and I do think as well that the collapse of the BC United's campaign really propelled the Conservatives beyond the momentum that they were already gathering. And I don't know if we had a stronger or a viable BC United campaign happening if this would be necessarily happening with the Conservatives as much. But getting back to your issue about confusion, on the ballot it just says Conservative.
Yes.
It doesn't say BC Conservative, and there are people who, quite frankly, are confusing the two, mixing them up. We just heard it right there. One of the guys said he voted Conservative because he wants Trudeau out. Once again,
Trudeau's not in the ballot.
Trudeau is not in this race, and that's a different race. Yeah.
Exactly. So the bell has sounded. Pens are down. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the scorecards. Voting is over officially, except for those that perhaps are still stuck in a line somewhere. They will allow those that were in the line wanting to vote to make their mark, make their choice. As you mentioned, Al, right off the top, and that's going to be another interesting aspect of this race and this evening, is voter turnout. Just over 1 million of the 3.4 million, whatever the number is, of eligible voters voted in the advance polls. Now we know that advance polls and final number don't necessarily, relate to a whole lot more in the advance. So we're going to have a lot more in the, overall, because we've had our lowest numbers in forever, the last number of elections. So it'll be interesting. But I think, and I know Kathy Michaels did a great piece with a political scientist down in the Fraser Valley, that a close race will motivate people to vote. This is going to be a close race. We've been told basically since the writ draw, this is going to be close. Do you expect a large voter turnout? No?
I did not expect it to be as large as this, because often what they say is when there's a large voter turnout, they're looking for change.
Yes.
But in this case, we have, 40 independents in the mix. So what does that change look like? We don't know. We will know by 9 o'clock or 9:30 today.
Also, with the weather down in the Lower Mainland today too, what sort of impact that had on getting people out to vote. I know at one point the authorities were saying that there was as many as 10,000 people without power at one point today. Now, obviously, Elections BC did say that they had put in place basically paper ballots, in essence, because of course we're using electronic voting counting machines this time around. But there were backups. But if they did have to go to paper ballots down there in some of the ridings, those obviously will have to be counted by hand. And will that delay anything or not? But as I say, I haven't heard that the weather has had a terribly adverse impact at this point. So we will see.
No, and we, I've been keeping an eye on the Vancouver News reports, and it doesn't appear as if they are going to extend voting at all for. So no more ballots being cast. The counting begins. And we've talked about some ridings off the top. We talked about Vernon. I did want to talk about Kelowna Centre because we have never had, and to his credit, Loyal Wooldridge is not shy to say, hey, I'm running for a party that's never won here, ever, 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 ever. CCP did 70 years ago or whatever. But we have never had an NDP representative, and he's hoping to be the first. It's an interesting riding. It's brand new. I know some of downtown Kelowna. Spring Hawes 4 years ago got some pretty good numbers in the downtown area for the NDP in the advance polls. But with the Glenmore Valley there as well, which may be a little bit more conservative, it's going to be an interesting race. Obviously a conservative who's going to do well because of the name. Dr. Humer, as you've mentioned already, well respected. Loyal Wooldridge, a popular city councillor.
If I were to, I've never really won a bet. I'm a scratch and lose person. So I'm afraid to say anything.
That's not a great retirement plan.
I no. I think Loyal does stand a very good chance. He's very popular, he's well liked. He's been on council now 2 terms. Yep. And he's very articulate in what he says and the way he speaks and he presents himself. So he stands a very good chance, especially if there's a healthy vote split. And he's a small businessman, so he does fit in the downtown.
Yes, true enough, very true.
I agree in terms of the strength of candidate that you're talking about with Loyal. The thing about it is, though, that most people tend to vote party over candidate. And I think that is probably one of the tough things that he has to face, is that he's running for a party that historically, whether it be 3 ridings or now even 4 ridings, has not managed to make that kind of a breakthrough in this area, because he is running for the NDP, which in this particular instance, he's also running for an incumbent government that, quite frankly, to give them their due, the Conservatives have tapped into a number of issues that they've been able to attack the NDP on. And that goes with the baggage that any government that's been in power for, in this case, seven years, amasses over that time. And I think it's going to be tough for him in that riding.
During our one-on-one conversation with Loyal Wooldridge during the campaign, I did ask him about that very issue and about the fact that the NDP has had 7 years to fix some of these problems that they're talking about fixing now. And here's his comment.
Frankly, they inherited a really sick patient from the BC Liberals. We had a previous government that cut ministries by 15% across the board and left this government with a mess to mop up. So they also inherited they had a pandemic to deal with. So that has impacted our healthcare system immensely. There's a lot of work to do, but we can't shy away from the fact that services people rely on have been under-resourced. Housing, we saw government exit the housing business for about 2 decades. That has massive impacts when we have Gen Z that's coming up with a huge population that's going to rely on more housing. We have baby boomers retiring out of the healthcare system. We have baby boomers needing more healthcare. So there's a lot of impacts that have brought us to this point, but it should be no surprise from John Rustad, who sat in government and chose not to make decisions to invest into the future. So where we acknowledge there's more work to do, it's going to take investment, it's going to take time, and there's no quick and easy fixes to it.
And that is Kelowna Centre NDP candidate and Kelowna City Councillor Loyal Wooldridge. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Wayne Moore, and this is Castanet's live coverage of the 2024 provincial campaign, along with Kelowna City Councillor and former CHBC reporter and anchor Mohini Singh, and Castanet reporter, editor, and former political reporter for the Kelowna Capital News, Al Waters. Great evening so far. And we've got some results, folks. We've got some results and I'm not sure which ridings we're talking about here. Columbia River, Revelstoke, and a couple of up north ridings, Conservatives leading very early. So the Conservatives right now leading in 3, elected in none. I mean, the polls have just closed. With the new system, we are told that we'll get some results, because it's all electronic now, by about 8:15, and half the results should come in by about 8:30. So depending on what we're seeing, et cetera, as things start to flip, and now the Conservatives are leading in 11, NDP leading in 10, and the Greens are leading in 1. Moving away from local just for a second, an interesting decision by Sonia Furstenau, the leader of the Green Party, to leave her Cowichan riding and move down to Victoria Beacon Hill, which is Carol James, the former finance minister that Central Okanagan governments were not happy with when she brought in the spec tax, but she's riding in that riding. I mean, it's a gutsy move.
It's a tough riding for her to move into that, because traditionally that has been a strong NDP riding. Carol James was a very popular MLA there for the time that she was in office, and moving out of what was seen as a I don't think I'd go so far as to say a safe Green seat, but definitely a seat that was very supportive of Sonia Furstenau when she held it before moving over. If the Greens are to make any kind of inroads, I think it will be on Vancouver Island. I think that's kind of where their strength is, and it'll be interesting to see if they can get some MLAs elected, because if it does come down to be a very close race between the NDP and the Conservatives, the Greens may have a say in it if they have any kind of numbers to influence who doesn't form the next government.
I do believe the Greens will have a better showing this time around than in the past, because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to feel that they don't have a home to put their vote, and nobody can argue with the values put forward by the Greens, whether you want to put your vote to that party knowing that they won't be forming government, but that they're standing on their values. At the end of the day, there are a lot of people who are liberals, who are maybe right-leaning liberals, who may feel they cannot align with the NDP, cannot align with the Conservatives. The alternative are the Greens.
Well, I think that also...
Results.
Okay.
Let's get to some results. We have numbers for most of our ridings. Now, we don't have numbers, it's percentage numbers. Kelowna Centre, Loyal Wooldridge with 46.53% of the early votes. Christina Lowen, 38.31%, the Conservative candidate. Dr. Michael Humer, the Independent, 10.07. Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream, the Conservative Tara Armstrong with 50.18%. Anna Warwick Sears, the NDP candidate, 31.98%. Kelowna Mission, which is Renee Merrifield's soon-to-be former riding. Gavin Dew, the Conservatives, with well over 50%, 55%. Harpreet Battle Hall, the NDP, with 30.8%, and Ashley Ramsey with 10%. Nothing yet from West Kelowna Peachland. Vernon Lumby, Dennis Giesbrecht, the Conservatives, 48%. Harwinder Sandhu, the incumbent, with 36.5%. Salmon Arm Shuswap, not a big surprise, almost 55%. For David Williams, the Conservatives, 24, almost 25% for the NDP. Nothing from Penticton-Summerland. Boundary-Similkameen, if this is any indication, that could be tight, and speaking of a flip, but it's early. Donegal Wilson, the Conservatives, with 45%. Rolly Russell, the NDP, with 43%. Peter Millibar, well over 50, almost 55% in Kamloops Centre. The NDP candidate, Maddie Ginn, with 80.6%.
Wow.
Tristan Cavers, the Green candidate, with 19%, and Ward Stamer, the mayor of Barrier, who's running for the Conservatives, with 0.14%. I'm assuming that's
How many polls reporting, though?
Yeah, 7 votes counted, so I don't know. Kootenays, we have numbers from Kootenay Central. The incumbent Brittany Anderson, the NDP, with 35, almost 36%. Kelly Vandenberg, 29.3%. He's the Conservative candidate. The Green Party candidate there polling well with 20.38%. I'm going to refresh the page and perhaps let's talk about anything. I know I was fast. Anything stick out?
Well, Peter Millibar is doing really, really well in this riding. The previous election, in the last election, he won by just, I think it was a little over 200 votes over the NDP candidate. In this riding, he's doing super well. I mean, 50 something, you said, at 54 or something.
I do. So we have different numbers now for Kamloops, North Thompson. Obviously, there was some error at elections BC. And we'll give them their due on that. 59.01% for Ward Stamer now, 32% for Matty Genn, and 9% for the Greens. So that was, yeah, we're good there. Still waiting on, did I see 100% for the NDP in Kootenay-Monashee? That's rather early. Penticton-Summerland, our first results there. Tina Lee, the NDP, with 42%. Amelia Boltby with almost 39, and Tracy St. Clair, the independent. For total transparency, she's, by the way, Tracy's my wife's cousin. So anyway, just for transparency there. In West Kelowna Peachland, Macklin McCall, the Conservatives, first numbers 64, almost 65%. Crystal Smith with 21. Stephen Johnston, the independent, 13.81%, and we have more numbers now from Kelowna Centre. Loyal Wooldridge, 42.8%. Christina Lowen, 41.95%. That's tightened up, and
sorry, can you give that to me again?
42.8, 41.9.
How many ballots are reporting?
Yes, don't know that. I do not have that number. But those are again, I mean that number is interesting. I mean, I don't think there's any huge surprises.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Stephen Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Stephen Johnson, very popular in West Kelowna, well liked, well respected, and actually a very, very good elected official. For him to be trailing like that, shocking.
Again, we don't
know. To me, anyway,
yeah,
at this stage, to me.
And we don't know. I mean, with percentages, we're not sure how many have been. I mean, right now, we're looking at 45, 45, and 2, leading, not elected. So yeah, it's. Continue on. I'm just looking for some numbers here.
Can you give me? Can you give us Kevin Kraft's position in that riding? That riding, Tara Armstrong is leading by a healthy majority.
54.56%. Kevin Kraft 10%, 10.7.
Okay.
And a Warwick
that surprises me too, because he is the vice chair of the regional district. Well-respected person in his community, engaged in his community.
So numbers-wise, if you're looking for some numbers, Kelowna Centre, and again, they're very early, 4 of 6 advanced polling boxes, and 4 of 15 final ballot boxes reported. Loyal Wooldridge 6507, Christina Lowen 6451. So, well, we have a moment. Let's throw things to Gavin Dew, a clip from an interview from earlier in the campaign as he speaks about the inexperience of the BC Conservative candidates.
There's no question that we have been flying an aircraft that's been being assembled and planned all at the same time, right? It is. Everybody knows that the Conservative Party of British Columbia has come together very quickly and has gone from 3 or 5% in the polls up to being within reach of forming government. And there's a lot of growth and maturation and so on that happens. It's like growing a startup company from scratch. So yes, we've absolutely gone through that period of growth as a party. When I got pulled in, when I became a candidate, which was about 2 weeks before BC United pulled the plug, you know, one of the reasons why they had asked me to join and one of the reasons why I chose to do so was the belief that we needed to put up scaffolding around the, you know, the new home of free enterprise and make sure that we're getting people pulled into the party and wrapped around the party that have a really strong understanding of business and the economy and policy to make sure that we are equipped to be a government that's ready to lead the province.
That's Kelowna Mission BC Conservative candidate Gavin Dew speaking with Castanet during the campaign, which speaks to something you talked about a few moments ago, Al, about the lack of political experience, not just in the legislature, but also in running a campaign and being a politician. It's not as easy as, hi, I'm here, now what do I do? There's a learning curve, and you and I have sat and watched city council meetings for I don't know how many years, but to say to one of us, okay, now you're a councillor, now you're the mayor, run a meeting. It's a little different when you're sitting up there as opposed to sitting in the back.
And during the campaign, of course, you also, whether or not the candidates showed up for all candidates meetings or not, they still had to face people on the doorstep.
Yes.
And there's going to be
if they knocked on their doors.
The reason given by some of the candidates for not appearing at some of the meetings was so they could knock on doors. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they were talking to people on the doorstep, and people have questions. People want to know where candidates stand on particular issues or where their party stands on a particular issue. That's the kind of thing that you learn pretty quickly if you haven't done it before when you run for office. And I think that's the kind of thing that builds the experience because these people haven't run before.
Yeah, no, for sure. During the campaign, we heard a lot from the leaders. We'll do this, we're going to do that, here's a promise, here's not a promise, and our promises are better than your promises. Some affected the central Okanagan, new bridge, by 2032. That would be a world record in this area.
Also, there was no cost attached.
Yeah, exactly. No cost. The removal of 10 cities, albeit it's going to take a while. Don't know how long that would be, but it's going to take a while. We heard about a new rec center facility for Penticton, and Dr. Michael Humer, independent candidate in Kelowna Centre, spoke on that issue during the campaign.
I sometimes wonder whether you shouldn't be able to release anything during the writ period, and because everything comes out with gifts with no cost attached. So I'm hearing the NDP all of a sudden they've changed their views on decriminalization, they've changed their views on involuntary care, and then the BC Conservatives are coming out with things with their platform that aren't even fully costed. I was struck by the fact that all of a sudden we were guaranteed another bridge out of the blue. And I would say, where was the local consultation? I know we've done significant studies on traffic congestion and traffic flow. And to me, that's the problem we need to be solving. Maybe we need a new bridge, maybe we don't. But I think for us to be bought off with political things from both sides is problematic.
That was Dr. Michael Humer, former BC United and running as an independent in Kelowna Centre. Speaking of the independents, and Want to get this and get this on record. We spoke as well to Stephen Johnston, Ashley Ramsey, who are both running as former BC United, now Conservative, independent candidates on the value of having independents. And so far, we can tell you that none are currently leading in any of the races, but just the value that the independents could have on government.
Well, what we have right now is an NDP who deviates over here and a Conservative Party over here with a huge gap in the middle of people feeling disenfranchised. So for me, it's important that that center-right, free enterprise, opportunity is there and present for people. And I think that keeping the Conservative Party in check with some hopefully high-caliber independents that get elected could be a really good thing for BC and a great thing for our communities. If I'm elected as an independent in West Kelowna Peachland and we are able to hold the balance of power, it's an exceptional opportunity for our community to advocate for the things that we've been needing for a long time and attract investment that has been really non-existent for the last decade over in West Kelowna Peachland.
But we have a lot of young families here that need attention right now. And quite frankly, just attention would be nice. Like British Columbia legislature, having this representation mostly in power from down on the coast, we're kind of stepchilded, right? And so having independents, a few of us from this region in there to really fight for what we need here is going to be pretty awesome.
And back live with our coverage of the 2024 provincial election. I'm Wayne Moore, along with Kelowna councillor Mohini Singh, Castanet reporter and editor Al Waters, looking at the results. And right now, 46-1, that is leading, not necessarily elected, one Green Party candidate, but some very tight races in our coverage area. Vernon Lumby, Dennis Giebsbrecht, the Conservative candidate, 42.83%. I'll get into the actual numbers in a moment. Harwinder Sandhu, the NDP incumbent, 38.2%. That's a very small margin. Penticton-Summerland, Tina Lee, what an upset this would be. The NDP candidate with just shy of 41%. Amelia Boltby, the Conservative candidate, on her heels, 40.46%. Tracy St. Clair with 9.69%. So we're talking about vote splitting, a potential for that there. Another very close race is in Kelowna Centre. And if I can go back on my screen, Loyal Wooldridge, 43.12%. Christina Lowen, 42.13%. So a few hundred votes separating Penticton-Summerland, Kelowna Centre, and also Vernon-Monashee, and 2 NDP in areas that traditionally, although, Penticton-Summerland, Richard Cannings, no, we're not related, is a very popular member of Parliament for that area. So it wouldn't be out of the norm for an NDP candidate to win provincially, although it's very unusual because there is a history, at least on the federal side.
Yeah.
So that region has gone NDP in the past federally, not just with Dick Cannings. There was Jack Whitaker in the past, who was an NDP member of Parliament. Now that goes back
Bill
several
Barley,
years.
I believe, as well.
Oh, yes, Bill Barley was the NDP MLA. Yes, and he was a minister.
Back in the 70s, early,
right.
back
And
in
then,
the 80s,
of course,
yes.
then it was very heavily socred for a while with Ivan Mesmer there, and then BC Liberals with Rick
And
Thorpe.
Ashton was popular.
And Ashton was very popular, yes, correct. So Penticton has flip-flopped, as has... And the riding boundaries have changed, Wayne.
Of course,
So-
and we can't underscore that
yeah.
at all.
I think one of the races really to look at, and we thought it would be one to look at, is that Kelowna Centre riding, where it's really at this point neck and neck between Woolwich and Lowen, in a riding that basically was created taking two parts of two very strong BC Liberal / BC United ridings in the past, and for Woolwich to be showing as strong as he is, I think is a bit of a surprise. Obviously, he wouldn't think so, but from a historical voting pattern point of view,
for sure,
for an NDP candidate to be showing as strong as he is, I think is a bit of a surprise, because they're pretty much neck and neck at this point.
Well, I mean, the old joke is you could put anybody, or the old line is you could put anybody up against, and put them in a conservative or whatever the right wing name is. And they can win a race
for many years in this area. Yes,
which is why again the Stephen Fuhrer Ron Cannon. I mean, that was sure there was the red wave, but I mean for it to actually hit in a region that is very blue was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, and I know we touched on vote splitting when Michael Humer got in the race, and initially he told me the week before he went in the race that he was probably not going to go in the race, and he did mention vote splitting. Now, when he decided to go in the race, what he indicated that time was, I talked to a lot of people that were felt that they were disenfranchised. We had the Conservatives on the far right, we have the Liberal or the NDP on the far left, and nobody speaks to me in the middle. So I'm just going to sit out. And he said, no, we can't. I need to give them an option. So his feeling was at the time, I'm not going to be splitting the vote. I'm going to be bringing people into the race and give them a voice who weren't going to have that voice and weren't going to show up and we're going to sit out the election. Now, we don't know the as it sits right now. Loyal Wooldridge with a 170 vote lead. Michael Humer has 1,700 votes. We don't know how many of those would have voted for Christine alone. We don't know how many of those would have sat out. But just looking at it, you say, well, there's a possibility of vote split.
I think it's pretty clear. He is impacting the race because it is so close. 42.86% of the vote for Woolwich, 42.31% for Lowen, and 10.59% for Humer.
Yeah.
I think Humer is affecting that race.
We have just been told that Peter Millibar in Kamloops Central has been elected and declared the winner for the, I almost said Progressive Conservatives, for the BC Conservative Party in that race. So we know that one.
No surprise there.
No, and not a shock. Again, Todd Stone's old riding. I mean, there are many who feel that, Todd Stone, if Todd Stone had been elected leader of what became BC United, that they may still be around and maybe a little more popular than they were. But again, that's speculation, conjecture, and Monday morning quarterbacking, so to speak.
Meanwhile, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, meanwhile, while Woolwich and Lowen are slugging it out in Kelowna Centre, in the other two ridings beside it, Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream and Kelowna Mission, the Conservative candidates are basically running away.
Tara Armstrong has been
it.
declared elected in Kelowna Lake Country and Coldstream in that riding. On the provincial board, the Conservatives right now with 49 either leading or elected, the NDP with 42, and the Green Party with 2. But interestingly, and again we talked about this off the top, the NDP with about a 15,000 vote lead as far as the popular vote is concerned, but this is 93 individual elections and not one full election. So, of course, those numbers.
And what are we hearing from the Lower Mainland at this point?
Oh, exactly.
So Surrey Serpentine is going to be a really interesting riding to watch.
And why is that?
Well, because there's Eleanor Sturko, the star candidate for the Conservatives, going and
Linda Hepner.
Is it Serpentine that I'm looking at?
Surrey Serpentine River. Linda Hepner, 6,665 votes.
So which is then I've got it wrong. Surrey. Go back up. Ginny Sims is second.
We'll get to this.
We are
Cloverdale. It's Surrey Cloverdale.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. We are seeing in some of the Surrey ridings.
No, Eleanor Sturko. we only have, well, we have only 77 votes counted there so far. So
Yeah, it's very early, and it's kind of at this point
that
where
may
you
be
kind
an
of would
area
expect it
that's
to be.
that was hit by the
Storm?
river as well, the atmospheric river, and hit with David Williams, the Conservative candidate in Salmon Arm Shuswap, has been declared the winner there. So that's another one that's not a shock. That's Greg Kylo's old riding from the BC Liberal days. Ward Stamer, if he's not been declared the winner in Kelowna North, Kamloops North Thompson, I'm sure will soon. 10,600, 59, almost 60% compared to Maddie Ginn of the NDP with almost half that, 5,900 votes. So that one should be done soon. Kelowna Centre could be in for a recount. We don't want to say that word too quickly. The spread is 95 votes. Loyal Wooldridge 77-70, Christina Lowen 76-75, Dr. Humer with 1,919. Tara Armstrong has been declared the winner in Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream. Kelowna Mission, that's Renee Merrifield's former riding. Gavin Dew with a 1,300 vote lead, almost 1,400 vote lead over Harpreet Batahall of the NDP. Brittany Anderson with about 1,000 vote lead on Vanderberg of the Conservatives, that Kelowna Central, or Kamloops, Kootenay Central rather, and that's Brittany Anderson of the NDP, she's the incumbent there. Kootenay Monashee, Christine Conroy's former riding. Steve Morissette of the NDP, he is the mayor of Fruitvale, I believe, with a 1,500 vote lead there as well.
And as we expected in Vernon Lumby, it's neck and neck between Sandu and Giesbrecht at this point. 42.07% of the vote for Giesbrecht at this point, and 41.84% for Sandu at this point.
We're hoping to hear from some of the candidates as the evening continues, some of those that have been declared winners. Gavin Dew has now been declared elected in Kelowna Mission as well. So that's two of the four ridings that have gone to the BC Conservatives. We did talk about the independents and whether we would get an independent. It's only happened twice. Vicky Huntington, I believe in 2009.
Yeah, and then re-elected.
Yeah, and one there was one 50 years ago, I think in 1949, back in the day. So some of the former MLAs from the BC Liberals / BC United who didn't get selected to run, but decided to run as independents. Tom Shapika in Kootenay Rockies was one of those that many thought had a chance. He's about 1,400 votes behind Peter Davis, the Conservative Party candidate there. So that's not looking good for him there. Up in the Peace, Dan Davies and Mike Bernier. Davies in Peace River North is well behind the Conservative by 5,600 votes, 74% to 20%. And Mike Bernier is 1,100 votes behind Larry Neufeld, the Conservative candidate. So those do not appear to be going, that way. The Prince George riding, if I can find that, Prince George North Caribou, that's Corley Oakes. She's the MLA there, running as an independent. She's almost 4,000 votes behind Sheldon Clare, the Conservative. So at this point in time, the independents, who we thought, especially those MLAs, not happening.
Well, they're not winning, but they are having an impact on the whole the election, on the results. If you look at.
But it's the Conservatives that are winning, so they're not taking the Conservative vote away and propping up an NDP.
No, they're not propping up an NDP, but they could be taking Conservative votes away and making the race even tighter. You see, like as I say in Kelowna Centre, but you know, there's something to be said about the independents.
Oh, of course.
It takes guts, it takes courage, and honestly, you have to salute them for having the courage and the tenacity to take that step without the backing of a party to say, I'm going to do this.
And honestly, and you know, we've had this discussion many times. You know, sometimes you shake your head and wonder why people are running for political office. But you know, at the end of the day, hats off to anybody who puts themselves out there for whatever reason, and usually it's for the greater good. They believe in the city, the province, the country, whatever the case may be, and you know, to have the gut, regardless of whether you're an independent or what party you run for. You know, kudos to anybody who has the temerity to do that.
I think at this point, the independents aren't having overall the impact that we may have thought that they were, but in some ridings they definitely are. And Kelowna Centre, one of our local ridings here, is a definite example of that. I think that humour is having an impact given how close it is between
and Vernon Lumby.
Lowen and Woolwich.
And Vernon Lumby. I mean, the race right now is
exactly.
down to 50. Well, no, it's Harwinder has now taken the lead for the first time with 8,983 votes compared to 8,932. So a 60 vote or 51 vote lead by Kevin Acton, again the mayor of Lumby, with 3,200 votes. So you know, there's a definite impact on that race.
Yeah.
You know, Kelowna Centre, same thing, definite impact in that race.
Interesting, the independents who don't seem to be having as much of an impact are the incumbent BC United, former BC United candidate.
Which are the ones, Mike Bernier, Mike, Davis.
And they're the ones who are not having the kind of impact in their races, but independents from other areas who aren't incumbents, but might have been running for BC United before that campaign was suspended, are having an impact.
Well, and the other one is North Vancouver Capilano. Can't find that one. We'll look for that later. But you know, Karen Kirkpatrick's riding, you know, again, not the results I think that they were hoping for. So overall, across the province, it is now, and this is going to go back and forth. The Conservatives with 46 leading or elected, BC NDP with 49 leading or elected, and the Green Party with 2 leading or elected.
You know, Wayne, our region is such a conservative area. As you said earlier, that a Conservative was sure to win in this region.
Yes.
Or anything right of centre, put it that way, whether you call it Conservative or BC Liberal or whatever. But it takes guts to run under the NDP banner or any other banner and give it a shot to try and get that seat. When you look at Harpreet Badohal, he's done quite well for a first time, his first attempt at it in Kelowna Mission. He is coming second, right next to Gavin.
In Penticton-Summerland, I just noticed that the race has now swung very slightly in favour of Amelia Boltby, but Tina Lee is only about 60 votes behind her at this point. So that's another one where it's close. And of course, in that riding, they've got 2 independents who are running there.
Speaking of finishing second or running second, we talked a few moments ago about Sonia Furstenau's decision to run in a very NDP riding in Victoria Beacon Hill. And she is right now, as the leader of the Green Party, 3,000 votes behind Grace Lohr, the BC NDP candidate. So
that was always going to be a tough
riding. Tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, the Green Party are leading in 2, but she is not one of them at this moment of time. And if they do elect 2, does she decide to try and grab one of those 2 seats, or will after a couple of elections decide that maybe it's time for different blood? conversation for tomorrow and the days ahead, but that's a conversation I'm sure that
that post-mortem
the Green
will
Party
take
will be
place.
having.
Yeah, there's still lots of voting to be done tonight.
There is for sure. The Cowichan Valley, which is her former riding, the BC NDP candidate is well ahead there. Well ahead by 200 votes over the Conservative candidate. The Green Party candidate is running distant third there. We're just holding on. We're going to be hearing in just a moment from Gavin Dew. Madison Reeve is at his party headquarters and his gathering. I'm sure a very happy affair in the Kelowna Mission riding. We'll be getting to that in a moment. Loyal Wooldridge continues to hold down now a 43 vote lead in Kelowna Centre, with most of the polls now reporting 5 of 6 ballot boxes, advanced ballot boxes, have been tabulated, and 12 of 15 ballot boxes from today have been tabulated. 21,700 votes have been marked and cast so far and counted so far in that riding. We don't know how many votes are yet to come. West Kelowna and Peachland, it is still Macklin-McCall just over the 50% mark. As we now have been told that Steve Morissette has been elected for the NDP in Kootenay-Monashee, I believe the mayor of Fruitvale. So I guess they'll need a new election in Fruitvale at some point. And of course,
by-election. Yeah.
Excuse me. City of Kelowna, if Loyal Wooldridge does hold on, we'll be having a by-election as well. Yeah. Oh, we can gather here in another couple of months for a by-election. Not quite to the magnitude when Christy Clark, when Ben Stewart stepped down in the West Kelowna riding, and
that was
Clark
super
ran.
dramatic.
Yeah, that was very much so.
But I think once again, it's closer than I think some people imagined it was going to be in Kelowna Centre between Woolwich and Lowen. I mean, we're talking at this point, less than 100 votes between the two of them.
Yeah, and it's the gap was about 350 early on. Mm-hmm. It has tightened a bit over the last few moments, or last number of updates.
Mm-hmm. But we're talking 100 votes between them.
Are we going there now?
They've announced that he's won. They're very happy.
We've been told, thank you, that Gavin Dew has just been. He has won. Very, very happy indeed. Understand that they may be viewing our broadcast at Gavin Dew headquarters, as we're getting a live shot there of the event. Oh, cute little girl.
Looks like a bit like a body cam.
Exactly. We're going to be going to Madison Reeve with the candidate in just a moment. And now, are we going there? Oh, I see. That was a teaser, folks. Okay, let's go. Madison.
All right, thank you, Gavin. I'll get you right here. One step closer. Okay, Gavin, you've just been declared here for Kelowna Mission BC Conservatives. How does it feel?
Fantastic. It's been a lot of work.
Are we off?
Your hope here with the election and being...
You know what? I think it's still going to be really, really close. I'm watching the results at the same time as everyone else. We're not sure what's happened yet. It looks like we've got some really, really close races. I'm hopeful we're going to be able to pull it out and form a government here, but it's definitely going to be really, really close.
Your goals here, now that you have been declared?
Yeah, well, the first things first is to really just keep on pulling for everyone else who's still hanging on tenterhooks, waiting to see what happens. And again, God willing, we're going to form a government. Regardless, we're going to make sure that we're fighting hard for common sense change. We're going to make sure that we're fighting hard to get our economy back on track, fix healthcare, address the homelessness and addiction on our streets. We're going to make sure that we're pushing hard on those province-wide and locally as well.
Okay, you ran for Liberals in 2022, I believe, and then you're now with the BC Conservatives. I think people just want to know, how far right do you lean? Or are you kind of when it comes to that sort of thing?
I'm a pretty center-right guy. I'm a business guy. I got involved because I was really, really concerned about what I saw in the economy. We've had 5 years of 0% private sector job growth. Government's grown by a third. We've got a $9 billion deficit, $26 billion in projected deficits. We have to get our economy back up and running because that's what pays for the social services that we all want and we all need. So that's really where my core focus has always been.
We know that you opened a business here with your family. Your kids are actively involved. What does it mean for you to be not only a resident of Kelowna but representing?
Yeah, you know what? It's obviously really, really challenging running for office with small kids. I'm so thankful to have a family support network that I have that's made this possible. Obviously, it's also really, really exciting. For them, they've been really involved in helping to get our business off the ground, and also really, really involved in helping to support the campaign. So it's going to be really exciting. I know it is going to be challenging to balance the two, and that that's going to be a big challenge for our family, but we're going to make it work.
What's the first thing on your to-do list?
I'm gonna, you know what, I already did it. I just hugged my kids. That was the most important thing for me. I need to catch up on some time with my kids, my wife Erin, make sure that they're feeling the love, because there's been a lot of hard work here, and it is always family that pays the biggest price when you go and do something like this.
Perfect. Thank you, Gavin. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Madison Reeve. Madison Reeve with Gavin Dew, the MLA-elect for Kelowna Mission. He will take over for Renee Merrifield, who was a one-and-done candidate for the BC Liberals / BC United, did not run for a second term. Mohini, a very, very conservative area. Well, I mean, no surprise, the whole area is, but I mean, Stephen Thompson, Cindy Hawkins, Renee Merrifield. They've had a lot of very high profile, very powerful, MLAs in that area.
And Gavin's a very well-spoken,
Yes.
articulate young man, very presentable, very smart, business savvy, and
unlike a lot of his colleagues, he did show up to all candidates' meetings.
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
He did make himself available to talk to people.
And he did speak on that topic. John Rustad did as well when he made a campaign stop, a 48-hour stop through Kelowna, when he was asked point blank by our Nick Johansson, they're not showing up. Well, is that your tactic? And he said, no, that's the individual campaign, and they do what they want. Take him at his word, but it's just curious that, especially the ones that may have some social media posts that they would prefer not discussed.
To be reminded of,
and they continue to haunt the party right up until election day. I know a candidate up north a couple of days ago talked about chemtrails and the seeding of clouds and.
Well, I think this election is kind of bearing out what so many people thought would happen, would be a very close election. I mean, within some individual ridings, yes, the numbers are quite lopsided in some instances, but from an overall point of view, in terms of seats in the legislature, it's still a very close election happening. And I think that was the feeling that it was going to be, and it's proving out tonight.
Well, and I mean, this could be 2017 all over again. Of course, people remember 2017 when the BC Liberals under Christy Clark had more seats than the NDP. The Green Party was the party that held the remaining seats in the balance of power, and they said, no, we will not support her. They supported John Horgan, and that began this 7-year NDP run. Well, right now, if this holds, and I'm not suggesting for a moment it would, because this has been flip-flopping, it's the NDP 46, Conservatives 45, the Green Party too. Here they are again.
They could be the one again.
And who would they support? Well, I think it's probably fairly clear from past history who the Green Party would support. Now, had it been the other way, the independents, which unfortunately it doesn't look like any of them are going to be elected, it would have been a different scenario. They would have, in all likelihood, supported the Conservatives.
And I think that with that number hovering around that 46, of course, 47% is 47 seats is a majority, and that's the magic number. It will be interesting to see some of these very close races how they in fact pan out, because some of them are very close at this point. I do notice that the Penticton-Summerland race, it's widened a little bit in that Tina Lee has fallen back to 39.95% versus Amelia Boltby's 41.55% of the vote. So that's widened a little bit, but that's still a very, very close vote when you look at it in terms of that they still have ballots to count.
There is, but I mean, trends being trends, that when that rock starts sliding, depending where those votes are coming from, if there is a certain pattern to the way they're releasing the votes, that could say something. But again, we don't know exactly how they do that, and how many votes are left to be counted.
Let's revisit Kelowna Centre.
Yes, your favorite. Let's. We'll take a look here. Just a second. Kelowna Centre. Loyal Wooldridge with 10,149. Christina Lowen, 10,097. So we're talking about a
It's still neck and neck.
A 52 vote margin that is still within the judicial recount.
And look at the Michael Huma number.
2,430.
Exactly.
And even if we're talking 100 votes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely a riding where the independent is having an impact.
Yes, for sure.
And the impact, how so? Taking away
votes
NDP votes or
no,
conservative?
Probably conservative votes.
Yeah, it's unlikely that the people who would be voting for him would be NDP.
No, I'm sure he's taking votes away from both sides, but I would suspect more from the Conservatives.
Yeah, I would imagine it's more of a right of centre vote that he is taking than a left of centre vote.
And I wonder. I mean, honestly, I wonder, and I'm not in the room. But John Rustad is looking at these numbers as we are. He can do the math as we can. He can see the patterns as we can. I wonder if he's thinking maybe he made a mistake in some of these ridings where you had some strong candidates. Dr. Hume, Stephen Johnston. Well, although Stephen Johnston's going to go down to defeat over in West Kelowna Peachland, so not a good example. But perhaps if it was Michael Humer versus Loyal Wooldridge, Michael Humer, just the two of them would have probably had a really good chance of winning that race because of the Conservative brand, one against one, etc. I wonder if he's rethinking or if that's even
on his mind right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's certainly got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
But when you look at the big picture, and maybe this is again a discussion for tomorrow and the Monday morning quarterbacks, but there has to be something said for stronger candidates. Sure, I mean, I understand his rationale of these are the people that were with me when we were getting 1.5, 1.9, 2% of the vote. They've been with me since day one. You go to battle, come heck or high water. And
it may be a bit of a moot point when you look at the at least the leading the NDP are leading in 48 seats right now. If they can hang on to that, that's enough, albeit an incredibly slim majority, but a majority.
Majority nonetheless, and at least they would be able to elect a speaker without having to worry. Although. No sick days, folks. If we're having a vote, you show up.
No. But if the Green Party vote holds right now, and they do elect two, I think that would give the NDP, if they had a very slight majority, that would give them a bit of a buffer, because it's more than likely that the Green Party is likely to vote with the NDP on a lot of issues than they are necessarily to vote with the Conservatives.
And the interest, and not to play devil's advocate, but the interesting thing too is that as we now learn that Macklin McCall has officially been elected in West Kelowna Peachland. Near the end of this legislative session, the Green Party walked away from part of their agreement with the NDP. So, I mean that 7-year marriage was certainly
rocky.
Fragmenting.
Yeah.
Yes, rocky
yeah.
to say the least.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think what was the comment from Firstenow just on the second last day of the campaign, that the NDP has been a disappointment.
Yes,
was I think was the comment that she made about them. So.
Well, of course,
nothing is necessarily a given in politics, but just the way that they stand on a lot of the issues. Even if you look at their platforms, the Green Party platform is a lot closer to the NDP's platform than it is to the Conservatives' platform on many issues.
But it's not the same, which goes to the point of there's still.
Oh, yeah.
And so I mean there is always going to be disagreement. Even if you're both on the same side, even if you're both in the same party, I'm sure some caucus meetings within the parties can get pretty pretty interesting.
The biggest one is probably carbon tax. You have both the Conservatives and the NDP, albeit doing it differently, but both saying that they would end BC's carbon tax. Now the NDP is saying only if the feds remove the backstop. The Conservatives are saying they're going to do it, but of course they can only do it if the federal government removes the backstop. But the Green Party is nowhere close to saying let's get rid of the carbon tax. So there are some larger issues where they don't agree.
We are very close to the end of the ballot counting and the ballot announcements in Kelowna Centre. And the race is it's about as tight as it's been. 41 votes in favor of Loyal Wooldridge, the NDP candidate, looking to become the first ever NDP MLA from this area. And Mohini, you've sat on council for this third term, correct? Fourth term.
Fourth term. I sit next to Loyal.
I know you do. But speaking as a councillor, and you deal with Premier, you're in meetings, with different ministers, and you've dealt with MLAs who have been in power. You have dealt with MLAs over the last 7 years who have been in opposition. How much harder is it for the city, for the politicians to get, obviously you get your message across because they want what's best for the city as well. But when they're in opposition, how much harder is it to get what you want? Get what you need from for an opposition MLA
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Excellent.
We actually have a very, very good team at the city that does the liaisoning with the province and the federal government, and so our team works directly with bureaucrats at the provincial and federal level to apply for funding, to get supports for our city.
But do you find that it's easier to get those when there is an MLA here who can fight for you as well within government?
Well, practically speaking, that would be, a dream come true. Look at West Kelowna did so well when
Christy Clark
was in office. But we've done really well, even though we haven't had representatives in government
but
in the last term.
Should Loyal hold on, and should the NDP hold on, that's certainly a voice in your corner.
In our city's corner, in our region's corner. Yeah. We had Harvinder there for a while. And maybe she'll still be there. We don't know.
And I think that was one of the points that Loyal Woolrich made when he spoke here during the interviews that we did with them, was that having a MLA on the government side does give a voice that an opposition MLA wouldn't necessarily have, at least not as loudly. In fairness to people who've sat in opposition and represented this area and other areas in the Okanagan, they do make the point and they do take the issues
Yes.
to the legislature, but it's different when you're talking to your own party.
Speaking of
Correct.
Harwinder, if I can just throw out some numbers here, we're getting close to the end of their ballot counting, and she has a 600 vote lead now over Dennis Giesbrecht, the Conservative Party candidate. So that, Dennis Giesbrecht had the early lead, but now Harwinder has caught up and passed. But again, talking about that vote split, Kevin Acton, the mayor of Lumbee, 3,800 votes. So you've got to think that maybe he took some of those away from Dennis Giesbrecht as well.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I mean that's another riding that and that went to a recount. We had to wait a week before we knew that one.
And some of these are so close that there won't really be a question of if somebody wants a recount, it'll be an automatic.
Yeah, if it's I believe it's 0.5% of the overall vote. If it's within that range, then I mean Kelowna Centre, I think we can safely say that's going to a recount.
Given the number of reporting stations, it seems that however that turns out, it looks like it's going to probably go to a recount.
Yeah, Penticton-Summerland is starting to now move towards Amelia Boltby. She has a lead of just about 500 votes now, with only 3 areas left to report. Well, there you go. Recounts, automatic, mandatory within 100 votes.
Yep.
Is
So then it appears then Kelowna.
Kelowna Centre, unless we have a dramatic shift over the next little bit, and right now, as mentioned, it's
it's about 35 votes, give or take.
Now it's down to 24,
Yeah.
or 34, yeah. So that's.
This is a nail-biting moment for all of them.
It is. It is, and I mean.
The other 3 ridings pretty much went as expected in terms of the right of centre candidates winning and winning by a plurality.
Well, and we're looking at, you look at West Kelowna, Beachline. I know the boundaries have been altered, but Ben Stewart, Christy Clark, Ben Stewart before that, very, have represent, we mentioned all the people from Cindy Hawkins to Steve Thompson to Renee Merrifield in Kelowna Mission, Norm Letnick for, it seems like forever in Kelowna Lake Country. Now you add Coldstream to that. So those, as you say, as expected, Kelowna Centre a new riding though. And clean slate, different issues. I mean, you've got the downtown, which is an issue all to itself.
Yeah.
I think
I know we live it here at our Castanet headquarters every day.
I think one of the big things with that particular riding is while it took part of its riding from the old Kelowna Lake Country and part from the old Kelowna Mission, it's also
Kelowna West and Kelowna West.
And Kelowna West, the downtown part. It also has been home to a lot of new people who've moved here, and a lot of the growth in Kelowna,
has been downtown.
Younger families, people moving into this area, the Glenmore Valley, or at least part of the Glenmore, not all of the Glenmore Valley, but I think that has likely played into it a lot, the changing kind of demographic of Kelowna, more so than it did in Kelowna Mission or Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream, which I don't think has had the same kind of
shift.
Yeah.
So, and to speak to that point, I was surprised when I heard, I think it was the Ipsos Reid spokesperson who said the younger demographic is voting Conservative, and it's the older people who are voting NDP. And you know what's really surprising, because
that's a flip.
It's a flip.
I mean,
the younger generation should always go for social change, and
my children are both in their mid-30s, and growing up, yeah, for sure. If they, once they look strongly at NDP and Green for environmental reasons and other reasons as well, but those were the parties that they looked at.
But when you look at some of the some of the high priority issues of the electorate in this particular election, they tend to be
housing,
personal economics, not necessarily provincial economics, but like how am I going to pay for what I need to pay for to feed my family, to house my family?
And is my situation better now than it was 4 years ago?
Exactly. And I think those are the kind of issues that do directly affect young people.
Of course.
Especially young people who are starting out. I have a daughter who is just about to be 29 years old. She lives in Vancouver, and she has told me straight up, she'll never be able to buy a house living in the Lower Mainland, let alone Vancouver. She's just resigned herself to the fact that she will be renting, and even rents are so expensive now. And I think those are the kind of issues that you talk to any of the candidates, and those are the issues that are resonating on the doorstep when they talk to people. And those are the issues that affect young people. So, it's understandable why young people are tending to do it, because the Conservatives definitely tapped into that in their election campaign.
It's easy to attack. It's hard to defend.
Very
much so.
But it's hard to change as well. I mean, you go to the grocery store and the steak today is $14 a pound, and 4 years ago it was $6 a pound, and now you're asking the government to change that. It's not as easy as boom, it's done.
It's not exactly.
I don't care what government you are, and I'm not defending the government by any stretch of the imagination. It's a fact. We have just come out of COVID. Did the governments handle it correctly or not? Maybe 40 years from now, history will shine a different lens on it and say yes, no, who knows? There's no playbook. We didn't get a playbook from 1919, from the Spanish flu.
Inflation,
and it cost, and that's where inflation. A lot of our inflation came from that. Supply chain issues. Now all of a sudden things cost more. People want more money, and et cetera, et cetera. Wages went up, and just look at the cost of city infrastructure, for heaven's sake.
Wages went up, but they weren't going up at the same kind of level. Now, inflation isn't going up like it was, and it has come back down, but wages definitely weren't going up at the kind of speed that inflation was rising.
No, and that's true.
And that was putting people behind the eight ball.
And wages, you look at construction industry and industries such as that, where there were a lot of inflationary pressures. But that doesn't help the person that's still making $16 an hour in McDonald's.
Exactly.
Maybe the person that's making $35 an hour in construction is now making 45 or 50. Great. But for that person at the bottom, they're always left behind, in that scenario.
Indeed. And that gap is just widening more and more.
Yeah, you got to think so.
Yeah.
So right now,
how are we looking?
We're looking great, darling. 46 for the NDP, 45 for the Conservatives leading or elected, and 2 for the Greens. Of note, in that, Sonia Furstenau, the Green Party leader, is losing in her attempt to take Victoria Beacon Hill. So that we also wanted to take a look at, actually there was one, Maple Ridge East, and I read something interesting that since 2001, Maple Ridge East has elected a member of the government. So for the last number of elections since 2001, Maple Ridge East, their MLA, has been part of the government. Right now, the Conservative Party leader, or Conservative Party candidate, has a 380 vote or 340 vote lead over over Bob Deeth, who is the incumbent from the NDP. So that's a tight race. There's tight races all over the place, all over the map, including 3 in our area. Kelowna Centre has been, under 100 votes.
How are we looking in Boundary-Similkameen?
Boundary-Similkameen, we have not yet declared a winner there. They are a great, very engaged group down there. They I think almost 35% voted in the advanced polls. Donegal Wilson of the Conservative Party appears ready to win that race.
Well, she had some pretty hefty endorsements, like Bill Beresoff, the former speaker.
Yes. 1,200 vote lead over Rolly Russell, the incumbent from the NDP.
Yeah, Bill Beresoff, well liked, well respected in that region, came out and endorsed her on tape.
My former stomping grounds where I grew up, Burnaby Centre, is going to go to the NDP. Burnaby East will be going to the NDP, it appears. A lot of the Lower Mainland seats, I mean, not a surprise that that the NDP are going to take those seats. Surrey, a number of those. Surrey always seems to decide the election one way or the other.
It is the battleground.
It is. It is indeed. That south of the Fraser River, Surrey, Richmond, Delta.
But even in Surrey, I mean, I'm looking at the Surrey city centre race and how close that is. 46.04% for the Conservative Party candidate, 45.93% for the NDP candidate. Yeah. It's that's a race that it appears to be 14 vote difference. I mean, it doesn't get a lot closer than that.
217 is now the spread. Sorry. Christina Lowen has just taken the lead by 17 votes over Loyal Wooldridge, 10,257 to 10,240, with just a couple of ballot boxes left to be tabulated, 23,960 votes, and we have a 17-vote swing. Regardless of how that turns out, you want to be the one in the lead, not the one chasing, because it's very
hard to find votes, yes,
especially that number of votes. I remember being in Peachland during the judicial recount for the mayor's race a number of years ago when it was an exact tie, and and it ended up an exact tie. We'll pull a name out of a hat. So you want to be in the lead, and right now Loyal Wooldridge finds himself trailing by the ever so slimmest of margins, 17 votes.
That Beachland election was bizarre.
Yes. It was. Yeah. And the recount was bizarre too. There was one vote that they found that was different, and it was for one of the candidates that finished third or fourth in the race so far down. It really didn't matter.
And that shift in Kelowna Centre has put the Conservatives leading in 46 seats versus the NDP's leading in 45 seats. So back and forth it goes.
Honestly, folks, who had Kelowna Centre as being the swing riding on your bingo card? Anybody?
Well, listen,
I mean, that's
riding to watch, but no one said it would be the swing riding.
Yeah,
that Surrey seat with 14 vote difference, I think, is just as swingy.
Yes. There are some nervous.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some very nervous people. The one thing, and we didn't really say it. I guess we said it without saying it. But we may go to bed tonight unsure who our next government is going to be, and it looks like that's the case, especially if neither one of them hits 47.
Well, if it's a minority situation when all the votes are initially counted here, obviously pending recounts that may have to be done. No, I don't think we'll know who will eventually be the government at this point, but we'll know who came out with the most seats.
And it'll be like history repeating itself.
Yes, and look how long how many weeks did that take when in 2017 when the Liberals had the most seats on election night, and it went right down to the phone speech, and that's when they were defeated, and the NDP were given the chance to govern, and because they'd done a deal with the Greens, they ended up in government, and they've been there for the last 7 years.
So I'm just looking and trying to decipher the ridings here. West Vancouver Sea to Sky is one riding in which the Green Party is leading. Jeremy Valeriot, 9,660. The Conservatives, Yuri Fulmer with 9,074. So basically a 600 vote swing with just a couple of boxes left to.
And that was a seat that was tipped for a possible win by the Green Party going into this. There weren't many of them, but that was one of them that was that was being tipped for the Greens.
Does that riding not take in Seashelt and all that?
I believe it
area?
does.
It does.
I believe
so
it does.
There are a lot of green, philosophically green thinkers there.
I'm just trying to find the other. David Eby, by the way, our premier, today anyway, looks like he will be winning re-election. There was some discussion that might be a closer race than you would think for the leader of one of the major parties, but he's got a comfortable 7,400 vote lead. So so that's all but done. I saw Sonia Furstenau speaking to the media. I'm not sure. I guess just probably conceding her riding, I would assume, and thanking her supporters and those that appear headed towards victory. Just in pardon my, just looking for the other Green Party candidate who happens to be leading. I'm assuming it'd be in one of the Vancouver Island
While you're looking,
ridings.
while
There it is. I found it. Saanich North and the Islands. Rob Botterill with 11,287 with a 1,200 vote lead. So it looks like that's a fairly safe one as well. So it looks like the Greens will elect there too.
Yeah, and that riding was a fairly strong Green seat too.
So they would be officially be able to be a party even with 2 seats.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that is the level. I think it's 2 seats. I think now it didn't used to be, and they brought it down. I think around the time when the NDP was reduced down to only having 2 seats when the BC Liberals under Gordon Campbell were in.
Penticton-Summerland, it's now an 400, almost 400, about 360 vote spread in favor of sitting councillor Amelia Boltby of the BC Conservatives, with a couple of ballot boxes left to count. Vernon, if I can scroll back down on my magic page here, I need John King's magic board. Harwinder Sandhu, the NDP incumbent, now with a 655 vote lead, or 555 vote lead, with a couple of ballot boxes yet to count. And scrolling up to Kelowna Centre.
While you're looking for that Surrey City Centre one that was so close. It's now 10 vote difference in favor of the Conservative candidate, but it's 10 votes between the two of them.
And in Kelowna Centre, Christina Lowen now has a 28 vote lead over Loyal Wooldridge. Again, still showing 5 of 6 ballot boxes advance and 14 of 15 voting day ballot boxes to count, although they're looks like they're coming in dribs and drabs right now. Trying to stretch out the suspense. We thought maybe we'd be done here by 9 o'clock, but
and I think the as we were saying earlier on about people predicting it being a close election, I think that this is bearing out that the Conservatives they tapped into something with the electorate in terms of the message that they had, and as you said, Mohini, when you've been in government, defense is a difficult thing, and we saw a lot of change by the NDP, moves away from things that they had been very high on. Drug decriminalization, for instance. There were a number of issues.
That was a big one.
It changed a lot, and there were a lot of people that if they hadn't changed that, I don't know if it necessarily would have been as close. It'll be interesting to see if there are other changes that happen if they end up in a minority situation, and just what they're willing to do for the Greens to stay in power.
It's official now, by the way. Grace Lohr for the NDP has won that seat in Victoria Beacon Hill and held that for the NDP. Sonia Furstenau, the Green Party leader, has gone down to defeat. So again, I know she did speak with her faithful just a while ago, and we'll try and discern exactly what she was what she was saying, but I'm sure that there will be some soul searching within her leadership as to whether she'll continue on or accede to.
As I was watching
leadership.
from the corner of my eye, it seemed like she lost by a significant amount.
Yeah, she did. She did. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
It was not close. Unfortunately, it never hurts to have a strong third party and a strong third voice.
Yeah.
Well, even if the numbers hold like they are, they won't have huge numbers, but they'll be pretty strong because it looks like that they will be the kingmaker between Evie and Rustad.
Can you say 2017 all over again? We've seen that movie.
So I just said history repeating itself.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is, and again, going back to a conversation with Dr. Humer when he was in our studios, and he said, look, as far as I'm concerned, as far as many of the independents are concerned, David Eby and the NDP, John Rustad and the Conservatives, neither deserve to have 4 years of unfettered power. Neither one of them deserve to have a 4-year majority. We are running to try and tip that balance of power and say, you didn't get to 47, we can help you to get to 47, but this is what we want, and this is how we want you to govern, and, kind of pull back the reins a bit. The Green Party were, I guess, able to do that to some degree over the last 7 years, and they'll potentially get that opportunity again. Right now, even though the Conservative Party has more seats, 46-45 with the two Green Party, again, those two Green Party candidates could
tip the balance
of power.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you get this kind of a situation, because there's a real kind of difference of thought where some people feel that minorities aren't a good thing when it comes to government because of what has to be given up and having a much smaller party basically being able to, in a way, dictate. There's other people who believe it's a good thing because compromise has to be made, and as a result there are projects and plans that get put through that wouldn't necessarily have been put through. So it'll be interesting to see what the NDP does to try to lure the Greens, and even more interesting, what the Conservative Party does to try to lure the Greens.
Yeah, of course, because both.
They both
want to govern.
They both need the Greens. Conceivably, they both need the Greens. I mean, obviously, whoever comes out with the most seats gets the first opportunity to form the government. But as we saw in 2017, the first opportunity is the throne speech. That gets voted down. It's a confidence measure. The Governor General then turns to the other guy and says, Can you form a government?
And John Horgan said yes.
Yeah.
The lead in Kelowna Centre is widening now. It's a 40 vote spread for Christina Lowen over Loyal Wooldridge. My guess, because we're still on the same number of boxes, but it must be votes within a certain area, that it must be a conservative area that has a majority of conservative votes that they're counting and tabulating and releasing at this moment of time, because the lead has grown incrementally, slowly, in a snail's pace. We're not talking about a 500 vote swing here. It's a couple votes here or there, but for those of you that are sitting at home going, see, my vote didn't matter. Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in cases where it's like 10 different or 40 different, one vote does matter.
But you don't know what riding that is going to be. I mean, it could be yours this time. It could be mine next time.
Yeah, it is interesting looking at the boxes still to report. There's 14 of 15 on
from today.
Today's and 5 of the 6 for advanced voting. So there's only a couple more boxes to report.
Yeah, but it's been like that for a while.
Yeah.
Again, it'll be interesting to see. Well, let's take a quick gander. The total number of votes cast is 1.9 million. Out of 3.5. Now the advanced polls was just a smidge over a million. I think it was 28.7, 29% or something along
So
those lines.
100,000, 900,000.
900,000 so far, and there's still votes to be counted. So, I mean,
Another
we
million.
may still have another 100,000 votes. It could get over 2 million, but that's still only about 60 to 63%, which is, certainly a lot less than the high water mark of historically.
Yeah, better than the last couple. If in fact it gets up to the 60 or over 60%.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think the last one was just under 55%. I think. Now, granted, that was a COVID election, which kind of muddied the waters. But even the one before that was in the upper 50s. I think 57 or 58% turnout.
Wayne, I come from India, and in India, people walk from the villages. They walk for hours to vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think we actually had a letter that ran either yesterday or the day before, and someone actually pointed that out, and they said, whoever you're going to vote for, at least get out and vote, because there's countries in the world where people either don't have that right or are fighting
for that
to get that right. And I really do think that it's incumbent on people to vote however they plan to vote.
It's not a right.
Make sure you have your say.
It's not just a right; it's your responsibility as well. So.
Take a moment. Let's throw things up to Kamloops and the Ward Stamer party, which I'm sure is very excited as the mayor of Barrier is heading to Victoria as the MLA for Kamloops North Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, how are we looking? Good, bad, terrible?
Sucks for the rest, though.
Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me, everyone. Sorry there. We just had to get the camera set up. So, thank you all so much. I'm going to just start things off here and then turn it over to the newest MLA in the province of BC, being Mr. Ward Stamer. But thank you all for coming here tonight to join us at Match, and thank you to the team at Match. They always do a great job for us. And to everyone that voted, thanks so much, regardless of how you did it, and which party you voted for. It makes the democratic process run, and it's really important. And to Ms. Grewal and Mr. Sunderman in Kamloops Centre, congratulations on their campaigns. It's not easy to put your name forward and stand up to public scrutiny, so really do applaud them for doing that as well. And even to the media, you guys do a really good job. No, we need an informed public, and we need people to understand what the platforms are, what we all stand for. So congratulations on that as well. And for those of you that know me, I don't normally work with notes, but I don't want to forget some names here tonight. So, for me, a lot of gratitude to everyone as well that voted for me and your continued faith in me. It was not an easy time, obviously, during the collapse and then the withdrawal of BC United and then my subsequent running for the BC Conservatives. But I'm so happy that I decided to take that jump, and I just really want to thank everyone for sticking by me and supporting me all the way through all of that. The donors, the volunteers, and in our campaign, tears is spelled with tears because you can't volunteer if there's no tears, if there's not volunteers. That worked so hard and spent so many long hours in time, especially Mark, Julie, Jasmine, Cam, James, the Shirleys, Sharon, Dave, Elk, Brenda, Andrea, Reeve, Ron, Lee, Frank, Nick, Christine, Todd, Ed, and forgive me, I know I probably missed a couple others, but thank you all. As we said on our campaign, just volunteer harder, and you actually did, so thank you all so much. And to the real brains behind the operation, because she unleashed her husband and allowed him to do this, so thank you to Vicki Perrell for... Because without Vicki, I wouldn't have had my right-hand man, Henry Perrell, join me and continue this. And Henry is such a great friend. He selflessly gave all of his time. He loves to crunch data. He's a great campaign manager. He would always lend his ear. Occasionally he would share a beer with me just once or twice. But I really do appreciate all the work you've done, Henry, and your loyalty throughout the years. I think this is about our 5th campaign together, so thank you so much for all you've done. To my children that are here and not here, and my friends and family, for all of their time, wisdom, generosity, encouragement, and of course my granddaughters who on those rough days would actually lift my spirits as only 2-year-old granddaughters can do. I know they're running around here, I think still somewhere, so thank you. And of course my wife Leanne, she is the fierce champion for me. She's also my harshest critic by far, and any of you that know her know what I'm talking about. But her love and support never fails to keep me going. So thank you all for that. And just, you know, I reflected back the other day thinking about what would I say on something like this. And Kamloops, we've for as long as I can remember.
Stamer and Peter Millibar, the 2 BC Conservative now MLA elects from the 2 Kamloops ridings. Of note to those down in Penticton, specifically Joan Phillip, the wife of Stuart Phillip, the head of the BC Indian Chiefs, is going to win re-election. She won a by-election in Vancouver Strathcona, I believe a year ago, and has held on to that seat resoundingly for the BC NDP. 12,900 votes, 69.03%.
Yes.
That is
a decisive
I
victory.
would say that was a slaughtering, a thumping, a resounding, routing,
landslide,
so to speak, a landslide. You name it, she did it in there. 3,100, like more than 9,000, almost a 10,000 vote swing. But it's Vancouver. The NDP candidates in many of the Vancouver ridings are winning with 60 to 65, 66, 67%. Until you get to Vancouver-Quilchena, which is going to the BC Conservative Party, and Dallas Brody. Vancouver Point Grey, again, David Eby is going to win that. Vancouver Little Mountain, Christine Boyle will win there. The NDP looks like they're going to win in Vancouver, Langara, Vancouver Kensington as well, so 60, almost 61%. Nikki Sharma in Vancouver Hastings, Vancouver, on and on and on it goes.
And then there's Surrey City Centre.
Surrey.
11 votes at this point.
Yeah, there has to be an issue there.
This is a complete nail biter.
Yes,
It's
once they start counting the votes.
11 votes with the NDP candidate in the lead by 11 votes.
That one, I wonder if that's in the leading or one category. Trevor Hall, I'm going through Surrey. Surrey White Rock, Trevor Halford of the Conservatives looks like he will win there. Surrey South, going to go to the Conservatives. Surrey Serpentine River, looks like it will go to the Conservatives. Surrey Panorama, right now it's the Conservatives leading by a couple of hundred votes, just over 400 there. It looks like the Conservatives will win Surrey North. They are trailing Jesse Sunner in Surrey Newton for the NDP. Surrey Guildford, that one is too close to call. It's about a 100-point lead for the Conservative there. Surrey Fleetwood, the NDP leading that one by 600. Surrey Cloverdale, the Conservative, that's Eleanor Sturco, who walked across the aisle to join the Conservatives, leaving the BC United behind. She's leading by about 500 votes. Surrey City Centre, that one is the 11 vote difference for the Conservative. And on and on and on it goes.
Meanwhile, the Kelowna Centre one, Lowen is beginning to pull away a little bit from where she was before. It's now, it appears to be about a 215, 217 vote difference by the looks of things.
And they have now completed counting all of the advanced voting ballot boxes and still have the final ballot box from today's voting. So It'll be interesting to see what that does. Obviously, that last group of votes from the advance polls going the Conservative way to allow Christina Lowen to pull ahead. It's interesting as you watch. I mean, you look at the final numbers, but how you get to the final numbers. You're ahead, you're ahead, you're ahead. The lead starts slipping, and obviously there's nothing you can do but watch and hope and cross your fingers.
Things turn around.
And as it goes back the other way.
Hope you got your vote out enough. Because that's really when at this point it's one thing to campaign, but on election day it's really all about getting your vote out. And if you don't get your vote out, it doesn't matter how well you did during the campaign. It's not going to win you the election.
It's now a 121 vote difference. So
okay.
It's starting to shrink the other way.
Now it's going the other way. So okay.
And again, we don't know where these ballot boxes were. We don't know if it's a predominantly NDP area, if it's a predominantly Conservative area. Although it appears as if everything has been fairly close anyway. But if there's I don't know how these boxes are because what constitutes a box, whether there's little boxes within the big box or whatever. But if you can, pull 10, 15 more votes from each little area, who knows, right? So
in this case, in this particular case, it's not the party. The brand in Kelowna Centre is the candidate himself. It's people will be voting loyal.
Yeah, oh, no, for sure. I mean, when was the last time an NDP candidate polled? And let's just take a look at that number really quickly. When was the last time an NDP candidate polled 42.5% of the votes in any riding in the Central Okanagan, in any election, federal or provincial?
In this particular area, the NDP tend to have a solid in and around 25% vote, and that was borne out in the other Kelowna ridings.
Yeah, and we saw
those kind of numbers, and this is an anomaly in terms of historical voting in this area for an NDP candidate.
Oh, for sure, no question about it.
And the race being so tight has a lot to do with the independent candidate.
It does, but as you say, it also has to do with the candidate.
Loyal's brand is loyal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because you look at the other candidates and the other areas. Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream is a little different because we don't have the BC United candidate there did not run. Pavneet Singh did not run. He decided to drop out. So we didn't have that true BC United vetted candidate.
Yeah, but then you had the independent candidate Kevin Kraft,
who's a traditional, but that's a traditional independent who they tend to poll very. I mean, regional district for the people that live in Ellison is, and Joe Rich is a very popular thing. But that's what 300 people, 400 or 500 people voters, not many. I mean, the rest of the city doesn't. The rest of the areas they look at the regional district and it's there, but a lot of people pay attention.
And from an overall point of view, once again, we've seen the pendulum swing, and 46 leading for the NDP, 45 leading for the Conservatives, and 2 leading for the Greens now. It just seems to go back and forth because some of these races are so close that 46 to 45 is alternating between the two NDP and Conservative parties.
Yeah, no, and it's 122 difference in Kelowna Centre now. So I mean, we'll keep. And my guess is that flip is possibly the Surrey riding that's so darn close. Or maybe they've actually started counting votes in the other Surrey riding that they hadn't. The NDP candidate in Surrey City Centre has now taken the lead, which is
that's probably why
came from. It's there's a couple of ridings there that are going to gum up the works for a little while, so to speak. I mean, that one looks like it's going to a recount.
Oh, I think by the looks of that, I think that'll be an automatic recount. Now, of course, candidates can ask for recounts too within certain parameters, and some of them may very well do that. But when it's that low, it's an automatic recount at that point.
Yeah, and we haven't checked in on Penticton-Summerland in a while. We'll do that now. Amelia Boltby now with a a 377 vote lead. There's still ballots to be counted, both advance polls and day of voting polls as well. So that one is still going on. As I mentioned, Kelowna Centre, the one that we're focusing on right now, 122 votes. I know you have, I don't believe you've been personally involved in an election where it's been so close as to whether you would win or not, because you always finished above the 8th candidate threshold.
No, I came 8th the first time.
Okay, so how close to 9 were you?
I think I was safe.
Okay.
I was going to say, how nervous do you get when you're at when you're literally on the bubble like that?
The first time I ran, I had sort of stepped out and I was focused on motherhood at the time, and I wasn't in the public eye, so I was prepared to lose. I thought I'd just give it a shot and see.
Okay.
I wanted to serve. I wanted to be on council. I wanted to do good for my community, and I thought I'd give this a shot. And it was Lois Serwa, whom you all know, who was the driving force behind me. She was the one who urged me to do it, and I wasn't quite sure if I'd make it. So that was not, it wasn't a shock. That I was glad I came in, though I came in 8th. So, but after that, as I watched I've never topped the polls. I've always come in the middle.
It's great for bragging rights, but realistically, it doesn't matter where you come, as long as you get a seat on council. When it comes to council, as long as you get a seat on council,
Correct.
You can come first or you can come 8th. It doesn't really matter because you've won a seat. So, but this obviously is a different kettle of fish, where it's
how is Kelowna Centre looking now?
Kelowna Centre is
123 now.
Yeah. It's it looks like it's gonna be one of the two one of the two very close ones by the looks of things for this particular election. Though I suppose there are others that have been close too. So, but it's coming down to the wire, at least in terms of the tonight part. It's what's tomorrow morning going to bring us is the question.
And I think at the end of the day, we're going to leave it there. It's going to be a while tonight. It's going to be a late night. It's probably going to be a long week for some candidates who will not know for a little while whether they'll be going to Victoria or going back to their old job. New job, old job. So as it sits right now, as we get ready to leave you this evening from our election desk, the NDP provincially are leading or elected in 46, the Conservatives leading or elected in 45, and the BC Green Party leading or elected in 2. Now 47 is the threshold. The NDP with just over 879,000 total votes. That's 22,000, or a little less than 22,000 more than the Conservative Party, 44.5% to 43.4%. But again, it's not one election, it's 93 different elections. Need to get to 47 to form a majority. And right now, that majority has not been met by either party. The Green Party, as it sits right now, will hold a balance of power. No independents leading or elected. All look like they're going down to defeat, and handily going down to defeat. A bit of a surprise when you consider 5 sitting BC Liberal MLAs decided to run as independents. There were some strong independent candidates across the Okanagan as well, but unfortunately none of those are going to be elected. And it looks like we may have up to 3 recounts. So, that math could change very significantly. So before we leave you, let us tell you that in Kamloops Centre, and in the 2 Kamloops ridings, we elected both Conservatives. In Vernon, it looks as if the NDP will hold on to that seat. Salmon Arm Shuswap, it appears as if that will remain with a blue tag on it, and it appears as if that will continue with the Conservatives holding on to that seat. 3 in the Central Okanagan have gone in the Conservative column. We're still waiting on Kelowna Centre, likely a recount there. South Okanagan, it appears Penticton-Summerland is going the Conservative way, at least for now. The Boundary-Similkameen appears as if that's going Conservative as well. And the 2 ridings in the Kootenays will be held by the NDP. So that's the way it appears as if it will shake down as we go to bed tonight and get ready for a new day tomorrow, and who knows what tomorrow will bring. I'm Wayne Moore. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Mohini Singh, any final comments? Any observations from tonight? Aside from, yeah, you guys are great. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Sweet. Thank you. No, I was going to say, I just want to say to all those who put their names forward, you know, I want to salute them, because it takes guts, it takes tenacity, it takes chutzpah, and it takes money and time and emotion to get out there and work so hard and to want to serve. And to them, I just want to say thank you, especially the independents. They didn't have a backing of a party. So to them, I want to say thank you.
And yeah, no, and for Al and myself, thank you for sharing your expertise, sharing your perspective, which is obviously different than our perspective, and that's the beauty of our system in this country, is we embrace the differences of opinion and the dialogue that we can have, and we appreciate you for bringing yours to the table tonight.
Thank you. Can I say one last thing?
You sure? Well, of course.
I'm really, when I look at Vernon, I think maybe I should wait before I make a comment like this. So.
To be continued.
Yeah. To be continued.
To be continued. Al Waters, again, as always, thanks for sitting in, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to discuss off the air when we're back here on Monday.
I'm sure it's going to be an interesting remainder of the night. I don't know if things are going to substantially change in terms of any kind of definitive answer as to what we're going to be facing, but I think at this point it's the close election that everybody expected was going to happen, and it remains to be seen. It's been neck and neck for a while, and on election night it's neck and neck still.
Well, again, as we leave you, 46 NDP, 45 Conservative, 2 Green, leading or elected in all of those scenarios. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow morning, and with recounts, we'll probably have to wait until this time next week to know who potentially will be your next premier, or whether the Green Party will indeed hold the balance of power as they did in 2017. For Al Waters, for Mohini Singh, and for the 19 other Castanet reporters in Nelson, in the South Okanagan, Oliver Asuyus, Penticton, here in Kelowna, Vernon, in Salmon Arm, and in Kamloops. It's been a great night. Thanks for tuning in, and good night from Castanet headquarters in Kelowna.